It is Monday on Daily Delivery. Patrick Reusse with me. I'm Michael Rand. Lots to get to as always, but Patrick, we got to start. I think we're going to start with the Vikings. We got to do Vikings and Gophers for almost the entire show today. But that Vikings game on Sunday, my goodness, Patrick, they hadn't led a game. I think Ben Gessling started his story with this. They hadn't led a game since the end of the Green Bay game. So they went that whole Philadelphia nightmare on Monday night, which you and I haven't even talked about that game because that was we recorded last Monday. And then, this game against the Lions, in a lot of ways, the Lions outplay them. And then just right at the last minute, it was almost like a game that the Vikings would have lost in the past, and they ended up winning on Sunday. And I'm still not entirely sure how. So I don't know what that tells us yet in the big picture about this team, but in the short picture, they're 2-1, and they've got to feel pretty good and I guess pretty fortunate to be in that position.
It's a game that they wouldn't have won in the past unless they were playing the Lions. Let's put it, the Lions, there is no surprise in them winning this game because of who the opponent was. These guys could mess up a one-car parade, and it's been that way forever. The Vikings came into the league in 1961. The Lions they were okay back then. It took a while. But Bud Grant is in the Hall of Fame because of the Lions. Chili and Tice were 16-1 combined against the Lions. They're the gift that keeps on giving to this franchise. And I think I figured it out the other day. We look at this franchise and say, they're like 55%, 54% for their tenure here, but they'd be right about 500 if they didn't get to play the Lions twice every year. And this, why the Lions chose to try a 50-yard, 4-yard field goal instead of make a yard and a yard and a half and win the game. In modern NFL, the way teams move down the field at the end of games, it seems like the clock is endless, the stoppages they get. You got a chance to win it. You got to win it. You can't be trying some idiotic 54-yard field goal. And I'm never surprised when the Lions screw up a game. Rob Parker, you remember Rob Parker? Well, he's still on the radio some places, but he's a long time Lions columnist and Detroit guy. And when I had a radio show, if the Lions screwed one up like this, I always got Parker on the radio afterwards, so he could bash the living hell out of him. But so I texted him last night and I said, "Are you surprised?" And he said, "Heavens, no, I'm not surprised. I knew they'd screw it up." So it's a lucky one to win. But the bottom line to me is the Vikings aren't as good as I thought they were.
Yeah,
defensively they're bad. They're not a good defensive team. So.
Quote from that decision, by the way, "I regret that decision 100%. I really do. I hate it." That was the coach, Dan Campbell.
That's right.
That was a bad decision I made. And that was the play of the game. And I tweeted this last night. The play of the game ended up being the Lions, I think the Vikings had kind of stopped them. It was 3rd and 14 at the 46. And everybody knows that the Lions are going to run the ball because the Vikings are out of timeouts. They're at the 2-minute warning. Jamal Williams gets 10 yards in an obvious run situation. And that's even like Eric Kendricks, I think, was like throwing his arms up in the air, like, what are we doing? How do we let him get 10 yards? Letting him get 10 yards was the best idea ever because it talked them into trying that dumb long field goal. They at least probably would have they at least would have punted and made it harder on the Vikings if they hadn't gotten 10 yards there.
Well, they had to punt. Yeah, they probably should have punted or, gone for it or whatever they should have
done.
Not
a field goal. Yes.
Not a field goal. And, you put them. Yeah, you can't give them the ball in the middle of the field. And, it didn't take much. It's 2 completions, you win the game, right? That's
it was 2 28-yarders to Osborne. That was it.
Yeah. Well, they But they're lucky to be 2-1, and now they get to go to London, right, and play New Orleans. And New Orleans did nothing yesterday offensively, so
Right.
we'll see how that goes with Jameis Winston, who I've always been a fan of the way he throws the ball, but he's an erratic guy, and they got to be looking at themselves down there as to whether they got any offense or not. So all of a sudden you can be 3-1, but I don't know. I guess the Lions have been fairly explosive offensively. I expect them to put a lot more heat on Goff than they did. Goff doesn't move much, and their two guards were not playing, only two starting guards for the Lions. And I don't know. It looks like I don't know if they know what they're doing on defense. I don't like them defensively. I thought that, the secondary is pretty much terrible the way it looks right now. Maybe if they get this side back or some of these a couple other guys, young guys, start to improve as the year progresses. But extremely lucky to be 2-1, and Cousins looked like a deer in the headlights the first until the middle, early in the second quarter. He came out, he was terrible, and they were just awful when they got behind 14-0, but they get out of it and it's 14-14 halftime, and they were getting booed there early.
Yes, they were.
So it was not. I don't know. I thought they were going to be better than this. I don't think they're very good. Now Dalvin Cook, gets banged up, and they say, "Oh, he'll be okay." But yeah, Dalvin Cook's never okay injury wise. So anyway.
Yeah, Dalvin always seems to miss 2 or 3 games at least. And I think your point's a good one. I think defense was a big question coming into the year. And what we wonder about is how much of it is learning a new scheme, how much of it is personnel, how much of it is a combination of the two. But yeah, I mean, the Lions kind of carved them up. And what's been disappointing, I think you hit on it, is the pass rush so far has been pretty inconsistent. That's a polite way of saying it. They just haven't really gotten much pressure. And yesterday they had 0 sacks. I think they only had like 2 quarterback hits yesterday, and that's exposing the secondary that was out without Harrison Smith. And we're going to start seeing their depth tested here pretty soon too, especially with Dalvin Cook potentially out.
MGM Wine and Spirits is the choice for savings, service, and a great selection of spirits, pre-mixed cocktails, wines, and of course, ice-cold beers and hard seltzers. With over 30 locations throughout the Twin Cities and beyond, there's an MGM near you. Head to mgmwineandspirits.com to find a convenient location in your area. Get social. Follow MGM on Facebook and Instagram for all the latest news and trends. Make great moments with MGM Wine and Spirits, your locally owned and operated choice for over 50 years. Save time, save money. Shop MGM.
Where's Hunter been? What's going on with him? He's supposed to be a monster, right?
I mean, this is the new, the new 3-4. It was supposed to unleash Daniil Hunter, and that hasn't happened so far. I mean, they got some rush in the Green Bay game, but since then they haven't really done much to affect the quarterback, and that's a big problem too, because that's that makes the whole defense go.
Yeah, and the Green Bay game, they were missing both their tackles, so that's they should have. They looked very good in that opener, but Green Bay looked very bad, and now the Eagles embarrassed them, and I don't know. That's a game. The thing about the modern NFL, though, is you pretty much got to take what you could get, right? I mean, last year they did screw up these games. These were the games that got away from them, and that's how they ended up being mediocre. But if you win a couple of these coin flip games, then if you win them if you win all those 6 or 7 that are up for grabs in the last 2 minutes, if you win 5 of those, then you have a good year. The NFL is so balanced right now, and I think there's only 3 3-0 teams, right? Or only 2 2-0, 2 3-0 teams, right? The Giants could become one tonight, but everybody's got a loss already, so it's weird, to say the least, the way the NFL has gotten in recent years.
It is. Now, I think the thing too with the Vikings, before we move on to the Gophers, I think one thing we got to worry about a little bit is, like you said, Cousins, who looked so comfortable in that first game. Again, some of this is just learning new stuff, the attrition of the NFL, things like that. But he did look uncomfortable, I guess is the word. Like I know they ended up scoring 28 points, but like the Lions I was looking like expected points added is one of these fun NFL stats. Like the Lions were better on offense and better on defense than expected points added yesterday. And still the Vikings managed to win that game. And I think a lot of it was, the offense, just a lot of those drives going 3 and out, just stalling immediately. And just what we had heard most of all about the O'Connell offense was that they were going to be scheming guys open, right? Finding these like small advantages. And then you look at like the end zone camera that they show on the replay on some of these plays, and like nobody is open. Like there's nowhere to go with the ball. And like probably a couple times Kirk is holding it too long, but sometimes it's just there is nowhere to go with the ball. And that's, whether that's learning what works, what doesn't work, or if it's just like, maybe this isn't as good as we thought it was. That's another problem too. Because if the defense is as bad as it's looked sometimes, you got to have the offense carry the day.
I think the Eagles gave them that Jefferson is the weapon, obviously. And the Eagles gave him you just got to take your best corner and, crowd Jefferson as much as you possibly can and then get him some help, get that corner some help. And if the corner's in trouble, just grab Jefferson and get a 5-yard penalty, if he's going to run away from him. But they basically, they press covered him, and the Eagles obviously really press covered him because the big play Slay shut him down in Philadelphia. And yesterday, Detroit was doing the same thing. The idea of giving him all kinds of room and playing him soft that Green Bay did in the opener, he's not going to see that again. Everybody who's got a halfway decent corner is just going to put him on top of Jefferson and hope that, he doesn't, get behind him for 50 or something. I don't know. What do you think of him? Is he more of he's not a just sprint down the field and beat you guy, is he, Jefferson? He's more got to working the seams and working the middle guy. He doesn't just run past you. KJ Osborne's your run past you guy now, I guess it is. So it's I don't know. It was a very good win and in a very unimpressive performance. Is how I would put it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And until that last drive, too, I was worried about their kind of secondary playmakers. Like Irv Smith hasn't done anything this year. And, Thielen caught some balls early yesterday. But if Jefferson's going to be getting all this attention, they need some of those other guys to make some plays. And especially, like I said, if Cook is out, like, I don't know, like the thing we said all along, like even if they started well, and they could start 4-1 this year, let's be honest. Like if they beat the Saints and then come back home and beat the Bears, they're going to be 4-1. The Bears are 2-1, but they look terrible. Like Justin Fields is going nowhere right now. Yeah. I mean, if they can't get more from some of these other guys, especially as the injuries start to mount, like I don't know, it's just like you look at it and you're like, okay, I think I'm just trying to imagine how bad we'd feel about this whole operation if they lost yesterday, and even with the win, we don't feel great about it.
Yeah. This is, our old friend Sid used to always say crazy league, and it's a crazy league when you consider that the Chiefs managed to get, beat yesterday by a bad team. And it's, just weird results all over the league yesterday. And this should have been another one, but Detroit's got to look in on that plane and look at themselves and say, yep, that's us. And we figure out a way to lose these babies. We somehow do that, right? They lost. Yep. They kicked away the opener too, right? Didn't they have a big lead in the opener and ended up getting beat? So
no, they rallied in the opener. They were down big in the opener.
Was that okay?
They tried to give back the second one, but they ended up winning that one. As bad as it was, Patrick, at least they aren't. The Dolphins yesterday, you see, they survived the Bills. They still somehow won. You're talking about the 3-0 teams, despite punting a ball off of their own teammate's butt. Did you see the butt punt yesterday?
Oh, I missed that.
Oh, they're backed up in the end zone. And so you've only got like 10 or 11 yards instead of the usual 15. And the guy gets pushed back far enough. The punter's not paying attention, kicks it directly off his own teammate's butt. Ball pops straight up in the air for a safety. It was the most amazing play you've ever seen.
Well, and meanwhile, you talk about injuries in that league. The Bills already got 5-6 guys not playing. So it's the best laid plans in football are are never, you never know how they're going to turn out because you never know how many of your guys are going to get hurt. So far, the Vikings are, they got a couple of guys hurt, but, Cook, we don't know about. But, are you going to end up, the Bills thought they were going to go 17-0, and, they might end up 10-8, 7 because they don't have their players. So it's weird that league, that because of the injuries, you can never be sure about anything because of the injuries in the NFL.
You grabbed on to a couple of oars, maybe not 100%, maybe a little bit tongue in cheek, the Harvey McKay column last week with the PJ Fleck endorsement. But Patrick, that's looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good. I watched almost the whole game against Michigan State, and that's a good team.
Yeah, it is defensively, man. They lost so many of their defensive players that you wondered, and they might be better defensively than they were last year because they have their secondary back, and they have some really good athletes back there playing in the secondary, and they're getting a little push, and they just absolutely dominated Michigan State. Now you go back and look at Michigan State having that great year last year, and it was one of those years where they just everything worked out. They had about 4 wins that they really probably shouldn't have won, and including the Michigan game. Didn't they beat Michigan or somebody? Didn't they have some ungodly lucky game?
They had like 11 wins, so yeah.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they were, and it was, but they, they came into this, they were rated 11th in the country or something, but they got humiliated by Washington, and then this was just a beatdown at home. And this team is good, and Abraham is great, and Tanner Morgan's got his offensive coordinator back. Boy, that guy out in Colorado, Mike Sanford, where they're issuing apologies for the way they're playing, and what a having him run the offense for 2 years has probably screwed up this team more than anything. And Tanner Morgan he's throwing the ball better than he has ever. And, it's pretty good for a guy 32, 33 years old that is still that good. Grandpa Morgan
he looks it too.
Grandpa Morgan is having a good year, and they're good. They, you look and it's hard to. Until they go to Penn State, they're going to be favored in every game, right? I mean, this Purdue team, I was thinking, maybe, but now their quarterback's hurt. So he didn't play this week. They fought mightily to beat Florida Atlantic by 2. So I haven't looked at the number yet, but the Gophers are going to have to be 10 in that game, aren't they? They're going to have to be, 9, 10-point favorites. And I think they should actually be rated a little higher. They're rated 21st. And,
they came in at 21 and 23, I think, in the coaches poll.
Yeah, I think that when you look at the Big Ten West, they are lopsided favorites right now, aren't they? I mean, I think
so. Yeah,
I was beat Rutgers by putting up 24 points, and this is a good experience. They had a lousy recruiting year. They have no freshmen, but they don't need them in the transfer portal. They added 5-6 guys that can play, and they had a lot of guys back, and they're good. They're good, and I was. I'm old, and I'm forgetful, and I have bad knees, but I can still be crafty when I have to be. Okay, so
you haven't lost your first step.
So I always go back to the '87 ALCS. I wrote a column beforehand picking Detroit in 5, right? Because they'd won 98 games, and the Viking Twins had won 85, and the Twins won the first 2 at the Dome. And I wrote a column saying I didn't say which 5. Okay, so I still like the Tigers, and then they lost Game 3 in Detroit, but they outplayed them, and Reardon just kicked the game away. And suddenly you saw this young, dynamic team. So after the Game 3 loss that Reardon blew, I wrote a column saying they're going to win this series. They are playing way better than Detroit. And Smalley the next day in the clubhouse, that's when they all saw the newspapers, even in Detroit, called up. He says, boy, you died for that bandwagon and just made it with your fingernails, did you? And I said, you're right about that. I knew it was the last chance to take the dive. And I was, after just looking at the schedule and what was up and happened to the Big Ten West, I said, okay, how am I going to get on this bandwagon here after, because I never have badmouthed Fleck as being a lousy coach. Okay.
Correct.
I've never said that. I just couldn't stand all the BS, the super sale and the, surfing over the players and all that crap and running out ahead of everybody and running down the sidelines and all that stuff. That's not for me. Right. But I said, and then I talked to Harvey, Mr. Positive for, had lunch with him in August and said, hey, Harvey told me how great PJ was. So I'll offer it up as Harvey convinced me. He's right. So anyway, yeah, that's a good team. And Fleck's a hero, and he's going to be making $8 million a year when this season's over. They're going to have to give him another new contract when this year's over. So they're going to win a bit. They could be, you can't say easily because it's now easy to be 11, but they could be 11-1 and rated top 10 when they go play Ohio State in the conference championship game. Because the only game, and again, injuries could screw up either team, but the only game they're going to be not favored in is the way it looks is the Penn State game at Penn State. Penn State looks really, really good. So, and then we have the Penn State angle we have is they fired the offensive coordinator, which is why he's back here, right? So, yes. I wonder why Franklin did that. The one advantage they would even have in a Penn State game is I think Franklin is a moron on the sidelines. He can recruit, he gets great athletes, but he can do some dumb stuff. So, yeah, I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg, as they say. I think that they got a lot more wins in front of them. They haven't been beat up at all, and I mean they lost the receiver, but I've always felt that if you got some athletes, receivers are the easiest thing to replace. And they threw 10 guys caught passes last week, right, in Michigan State. So yeah, they're good. They are good, and they're finally going to fill the building for Purdue. The crowds with that lousy, horrible non-conference schedule they had. They had the freshmen in there for free for the opener, and they all left. But the crowds for the next two games were pretty lousy. So it's people are going to show up for Saturday for Purdue game. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, that game opened 7.5. It's now 10, and I think they got this one, then they got a bye week, then they've got Illinois, then it's Penn State, and you just look at the other teams in the Big Ten West. They've got a much tougher schedule. Wisconsin just got clobbered by Ohio State. Iowa, looked better this week against Rutgers, but Rutgers isn't much. So. Yeah, I mean it's something to it's a sight to behold, and they got all these 6th-year guys. I've had kind of fun getting to know some of those guys. I've been over there a little bit more, and they just kind of seem like they've got it going. But again, like you said, a lot can happen. It is still the Gophers have been kind of the Lions of college football for a little while here, so you never know exactly how that's all going to play out.
They, I just don't see this team having that big. I mean, like having Illinois. Illinois was able to beat them last year by playing the most conservative football a team could possibly play. That's not going to work against this team. This team's going to score. They're going to be in the high. You're going to have to get score in the 30s to beat this team. And I last year they've got managed to lose 2 or 3 games, lost to 2 or 3 games where they didn't get over 15, right? I mean, they didn't get over 14 points. That's not this type of team. You're gonna have to put some points up to beat this team. So yeah, they're good. They're good. There's no doubt about it.
We got like 25 minutes in. We still haven't even talked about the Twins and Fan Appreciation Weekend, probably for good reason, right, Patrick? You're 74 and 79 right now. So you're 78 and 84 is looking pretty good.
They're 12 games out. I mean, they're already eliminated, but they were all year. They led the division for over 3 months. And then when September 4th, they were still tied for first. September 4th to what's today? The 20, what? 20.
It's 26. 26, yeah.
So in 3 weeks, you go from tied for first to 12 out. That is not good. And and now the lineup they're playing is, they don't care who plays and who doesn't. This Palacios, he was 0 for 33. He was batting 80, and he's a fixture in the lineup. Jake Cave is hitting 190. Iron Man Jake, you can't get him out of the lineup. It's a complete disaster of what has happened here. And even when they were tied for first on September 4th, people weren't enjoying it, and now it's a disaster for this franchise. And Correa's had this nice. The other thing is Correa's had this nice salary push in September. He's been great, and everybody else has stunk, and he's going to end up, getting his money, and it's not going to be here. So that's another thing. And who do you think is going to be the opening day shortstop next year? It better not be this guy that they've been trying to play. Palacios. They've had a terrible year at the gate. They padded their attendance on incredibly this weekend. I was there, and Friday night they announced 24, and it looked more like 15, and then they announced 30 on Saturday. I wasn't there, but there's no way in God's green earth they had more than 16, 17 from what I could see. So I don't know how they did this, and I don't know what they announced yesterday, but had a terrible year at the gate, and in retrospect, they've had a terrible year on the field, and going to finish. I said 78, 84 when the year started, and then I think I predicted a little higher for the start of the season, but I was never over my skis about this team, and they stink right now. And it's I see Larnick has ruined his wrist too. Did you see that?
No.
Larnick, he was getting ready to play, and now he's got a bad wrist.
What are they doing? What are they doing?
I don't know what's going on.
What are they doing to these guys?
I have no idea. You gotta, it's a joke. I mean, they have to look at a lot of things that they're doing here that you cannot. This is not anywhere near normal. Look at Cleveland. Cleveland has got the guy, the crusty old manager, wrote down the same lineup every day for the last 2 months, and they're going to win 90 games, Cleveland, somehow. They're 86 wins now. And they finally clinched it yesterday. They'd eliminated the Twins a couple of days earlier. But they did it by playing their lineup. Boom, this is our lineup. We're going to play them. And these guys, the only Iron Man they've had since early August is Jake Cave.
Jake Cave, baby.
Jake Cave. Now, somebody gave me this quote that from spring training, secondhand. This is secondhand, but one of the higher ups said, "I know one thing: Jake Cave is not going to play for this team again. Now you can't get him out of the lineup."
My gosh!
And he goes out there and he makes catches and he really plays hard. But you look him up, he strikes out half the time, and he's 30 years old and he's playing every game. It's a joke. And you could blame injuries if it did become like their modus operandi that everybody's hurt. Buxton, we talked to the press, I guess, on Saturday, and he's looking back at it as a good year. Really? You played 18 games since the All-Star break. 18 games. You stole your money again. There is no system that they can look at when the season starts next year and say, well, we got Buxton back. You don't have Buxton back because he'll be hurt, sometime. He's got a bad skeleton. He's got a bad hip and a knee that is now chronic. They're going to go in and have scope surgery. Well, that's not going to cure tendonitis. The reason Buxton took $100 million is his agent told him, listen, you better take this because we don't know if you're going to play or not. And the other fact is, even if he comes back and he's got to be a DH, if he plays 110 games and he's got a DH half of them, he's not a 4-star player if he's not playing center field. That's 2/3 of what he brings to you. It's being a great center fielder. So he's a disaster. It's there's nothing to feel good about. And I looked up the stats on my guy Jorge Lopez, and he's still throwing as many fastballs as he did, like 50% instead of 53% in Baltimore. So I don't know how they screwed him up, but he's terrible. And the Twins are, I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do about next year. I mean, you're going to tell yourself, wow, we got Malley back. Well, no, you don't. You don't know if you got Malley back. You don't know, okay, we got Maeda back. Now they should probably have him back. But, they go into next season with zero optimism. There's the Miranda had a good year. Nick Gordon is a much better offensive player than a hitter than I thought. But he might run the wrong way when he's on the bases. And, he might take off from second, head back to first instead of go to third or something. He's terrible on the bases. But, they got to really look at a lot of stuff that they're doing wrong. And the number one thing they got to look at is how do we keep people on the field?
Well, I looked it up. One more point on the Twins before we move on to a quick Gopher volleyball thought before we finish up. I looked it up the other day because I was just curious. Like, one thing, they're on a 93 loss pace for the last 4 months, so that's not good. Two, they don't have anybody that's at 150 innings pitched yet. Now, Joe Ryan might get there depending on what he does at the end of the year here. I think he's like 143 or something like that. But they didn't have anybody get to that mark last year either. 2019, Patrick, we talk about the Bomba squad. That team had 5 guys make at least 26 starts apiece that year, and all of them pitched. I think Pineda was the low water mark at like 146. They had Barrios through 200. I think the pandemic messed these guys up in a lot of different ways, but one was that they doubled down on this whole idea of we got to protect pitchers, and it's just not working.
No, it's not at all. I asked Rocco about that Friday, and he gave a long answer. He says, do you not have to get, I don't know how I asked it, but the question was, can you survive by giving their bullpen that many innings? Your bullpen is, I think they're second in the majors, and Tampa's number 1, and Tampa does all that on purpose, right? They got the openers and
which shouldn't even count as bullpen.
Yeah, they couldn't. So, and he gave a long answer about how, yes, he wants the starters to go farther, and they're claiming it's not a big, it's not looked at that. They don't make their pitching decisions at 2:00 in the afternoon like we all feel they do. But it's no matter what their excuse is, you cannot this cannot be your pitching usage and survive. And Chris, you cannot have a rotation that has Chris Archer going 3 2/3 every 5 days. That is not functional. And they thought that Falvey basically said this. They thought that they knew they were going to use Archer like this for the year, but they thought he'd build up and become a guy who could go 6 innings. And I don't think he never made it more. He made it 6 once, maybe. I don't know.
He never finished a full 6. Yeah.
The most amazing stat, Mike, though, wasn't, I think you might have had it, that the other day Ryan became the second starter of the year to throw a
to pitch
game
into the eighth inning. Yeah.
Eighth inning.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I don't know.
It's not sanity. It's not sanity. And whoever's up there, they deny that it's all, their pitching strategy and all that.
Right.
It's not sanity. You cannot survive that way. You cannot, you cannot put that much stress on a bullpen, especially now that we have limits on, the 13. You're going to start next season. You can only have 13 pitchers, right? Unless they talk Major League Baseball into letting them have an extra one for April. But you gotta, you gotta get some innings out of these starters. They just, the two things they got to deal with is, why in the hell is everybody getting hurt? And how could we be this stupid the way we use our pitching? They gotta get smart.
Two good questions.
I mean, I gotta give myself credit. It's been driving me crazy all year, right? The way they, but throw strikes. I mean, Lopez comes in and he's 3-2 on everybody. I saw him pitch for Baltimore. He's 1-2 on everybody. What happened? Why are you so careful going after hitters? Go after some hitters, you dummies. That drives me nuts. But I think it's a good development for this team. If you weren't going to win it, to collapse.
Yes, I agree.
A hard look at themselves.
Yes.
Otherwise they could have said, we hung in there, blah, blah, blah.
Bad luck this, bad luck that. Yeah, right.
It's a disaster. They're going to lose 85 games.
At least, they probably are.
Maybe what do they got? 9 left?
Yeah, I think 9 left. Yeah.
How about the only bigger disaster in baseball is the White Sox they actually had a good team and they've collapsed too. So, what Cleveland is, Terry Francona is going to have to get every vote for manager of the year, right? In the American League. It's because he played his lineup and they pitched good and he used his pitchers and he tried to figure out a way to get Clase on the mound in the 9th inning with a 2-run lead. That's what happened. And this team is in big trouble PR wise. Baseball's in trouble, and here it's people have the perception that it's the money that the poll ads are spending. That isn't it. They spent $140 million this year. They went out and got Correa. They tried to add. They kept adding, and everybody they added broke down, and except for Correa. So it's a disaster.
While we got a minute left, Patrick, happier finish. Gopher volleyball beat Wisconsin for the first time, I believe, since 2018. Gophers were ranked 6, Wisconsin 8. That was at the Pavilion. So that's a good win for them and a program that you have written about plenty over the years.
And a sweep. Yeah, I watched most of it last night, and they had lost at Purdue in I think 4 sets, right? They did squeeze one out down at Purdue to open the Big Ten, but because of this rugged schedule they played, they'd had some losses, and they were not living up to. They'd had a couple of injuries too. They were not living up to expectations, but they needed that one last night. And the Big Ten is vicious in volleyball. They have Northwestern here Wednesday night, and that shouldn't be much of a problem. But I think they needed to find themselves last night. And this kid from Wisconsin, that's the freshman, was the number 1 recruit, played great last night, and they just played their game finally last night and looked really good. And it's one of the best atmospheres. It's the best atmosphere in town, really, when you fill that place up and it's loud and it's the perfect size. And the other thing is, you never play Western Illinois, and you never play. You don't have mutts coming to town. When they play, they're generally a very worthy opponent, and it was a great win for which is the most consistently. I don't count women's hockey because there's only like 40 teams in the country, and volleyball, there's 350, but it's the best program on campus, and they proved it again last night by having that place jumping. And
yes, they did.
And beating the Badgers, they weren't really a worthy challenger to Wisconsin last year. Wisconsin won the national championship, but was just a higher class operation. And last night they proved they're at least back to the Wisconsin level. So
I agree. It was a winning weekend. Vikings and Gophers did it in different ways, but everyone's got to be at least pretty happy with everything they saw this weekend. And we'll see where the Gophers and Vikings take it from here. Vikings in London next weekend, Gophers against Purdue, like we said back here. So could be a fun fall. Even the Wild is played their first preseason game. Wolves have media day today. It's that time of year, Patrick.
Yeah, it is. And I was at the Bethel St. John's game, and they had 7,000 people there. And Bethel beat them. They had lost 8 in a row to the Johnnies, and they got this Rosty kid back as their quarterback. Another 6th-year guy, same age, same as Tanner Morgan. And that was fun too. There were 7,000 people out there, and there's beyond the big schools in town. There's other stuff going on too. It is a great sports time of year, and it gets a lot better as soon as the Twins stop playing. The whole atmosphere of the Twin Cities will improve because we won't have to watch this collapse any longer.
Well, I'm sure we'll go deep on them next week because the season will be over by the end of next week, if I'm not mistaken. At least I hope it. No, we got a little bit more after that than we got. Can't they just stop playing? Well, we'll talk about them more next week and beyond. Patrick, great stuff.
PJ, you shut up those critics, PJ. Way to go, buddy. I've been with you all along.
grab an oar, grab 2. It's never too late. All right, Patrick, thanks.
See ya.